trees, it reflects now poor, fair, and good condition trees. And then finally, I talked about how do you edit the map inside your dashboard. Change the classification method, change the symbology, change the scale, etc. You can do that right from the dashboard. Very helpful. And finally, when you add elements to your dashboard, you're going to have indicator 1, indicator 2, pie chart 1, pie chart 2. So make sure that you know that you can go in there and rename these so that you can easily find things more easily in the future. All right, so that was activity 2D. Let's go into activity 3, an even deeper dive in this next section. What we're going to do is we're going to go into that dashboard about walkability that I had earlier, and we're going to configure it. We're going to find out how I configured it. So I'm going to guide you through some of these activities in here. I'm going to guide you through how did I create the pie chart with the sorting of the fields, with the number of walkable points, the top 3 months for surveys, and a filtered list. I'm going to briefly guide you through that in this next segment. Okay, so let's get started with this activity, going a little bit deeper still into dashboards. As promised, in this section, I'm going to show you how I created my walkability dashboard, which as a refresher, it is right there. I'm going to create a new dashboard so we can test it and I can show you exactly how I configure these elements. In this case, I have several what I call intermediate or advanced kind of elements in here, going a little bit further than what we had before. How do I, this is reflecting on what we talked about earlier. I also have this action is not null, so I'm excluding the null value if someone didn't indicate whether it was friendly or unfriendly. Other than that, it's pretty much what we had done before. We've got some slices configured with certain colors, and of course I gave it a title. This is where you could actually name that pie chart so it's not called pie chart 1 in your contents. So that's all that pie chart is. Let's look at a couple of other elements in here. Let's look at the indicator, number of submitted as of this date. How did I configure that as of this date? Well, just like earlier, we went into the advanced formatting where we see the arcade language, the arcade code that's running that indicator. And in this case, I'm just configuring a today's date and pretty date field, both of those. And I'm giving them today's date, etc. I'm formatting it in such a way that it displays nicely with the slashes and so on. So that's all. I'm just storing that as a variable, and I'm outputting that into my indicator, as you can see here. Total number of surveys submitted as of this date. And so, okay, what about this list, lower right, top 3 months for surveys? How did I get this list with the month and then the number after the month? So obviously that is some sort of sort with a filter. So again, I'm going into the arcade scripting language. I'm setting a couple of variables and saying, okay, I'm going to store those variables and I'm going to output them into a filtered list. So that's what is powering that. You can see the code that I've got in here for that. Again, I could name that. So this is the output maximum number of features. I just want 3, but if I wanted to, I could say 4, go back to 3, etc. So that part is easy. Sort by surveyed by month, descending. I could do 8. That's not, so I'm going to go back and see that there was a certain month when I had 188 survey points. And so that is how that is configured. The output then month, comma, bracket, survey by month, and that is a variable that I'm storing with the arcade scripts. So that's how that is configured. What about the map? Is just a map from my web map. Notice I can adjust that map, as you can see here. But that's how I configured these, what I call fairly advanced elements, but again, not too advanced. And with a couple of lines of code, you can do the same thing. Thanks. Before I summarize that last segment, which was basically how to configure that dashboard I built for walkability with some of the intermediate/advanced elements in there, I wanted to make sure that as an instructor, you did not miss the following. This ability here to take an existing dashboard and put a little bit of a tweak or adjustment to the URL lets you use that dashboard for a starting point and create your own dashboard from it. So compare, for example, this second URL that I have right here. Notice the big long map ID. Okay, that's my dashboard for walkability. If I use that first URL and put new number sign or hashtag ID equals, and then the map ID after that, basically what you're saying is I want to take someone's existing dashboard and I'm going to use that as a starting point for mine. That's pretty powerful as an instructor to be able to, hey, students, we're going to start, as I started you off with, let's configure this. I don't have to start completely over from a map and start the dashboard from step one. I can start right at this stage. Wonderful to be able to do that. The ability to access a dashboard and make a copy of it in edit mode is a fabulous educational capability. So I just wanted to make sure you didn't miss that because that's very powerful. In this activity, then, we examined the pie chart first. So we looked at how was that pie chart configured. Pretty basic. I have a couple of things with a null value that I showed in there. But then we looked at the customized indicator, total number of surveys submitted as of this date. I stored that date in a field, as you can see here in the arcade language. And then we created a filtered list. We examined the filtered list, top 3 months for surveys, August, November, September, and the number indicated after that. Okay, how was that created? A filtered list, month, year, number of surveys, stored in a variable called survey by month. And this is where that survey by month variable got created, is in the arcade zone and the edit data options in that particular part of the dashboard. Let's go on to deeper investigations. Alerts and other techniques. We've touched on some of these in this workshop, but for example, see in this one about power outages, this is actually done in the field. And you know how to do this from this workshop. You know how to indicate certain colors or fonts or an indicator symbol or something, a map that flashes an element, etc. When something happens, when it goes over a certain point, when it's a poor tree condition, etc. You know how to do that. Also, user interaction. You've also done this where the user, remember I want the user to select poor health trees and have that indicated in the map and had that indicated in the table. So the dashboard changes as the user selects rows, portions of charts, and other elements. Lots more you can do there, but we've actually done that a little bit. Now for activity 4, this is on your own. Someone with admittedly more time on their hands than I have actually created a feature service for squirrels, 3,000 squirrels in New York City. It's on the same cityofnewyork.us open data portal where I got the tree species data and the tree health data. So you can go out there and grab that data, and there's a feature layer that I've created from it. You can create your own feature layer if you want to, but then build a map, build a dashboard from that squirrel data, save it, share it, and then go a little deeper. Configure those elements in the dashboard as I did. For deeper investigations also, there's GitHub for arcade expression samples. No shortage of samples. How do you go from the left side to the right side? How do you make that look a little bit more effective? There's some sample code in there, so you don't have to build all these expressions from scratch. That's really good to know. Finally, I wanted to give you some resources and encouragement. Keep exploring. This is a lifelong learning endeavor. Learning these tools and to use them more effectively. The tools evolve, your needs evolve, your objectives in your education and society evolve. What's the best tool to use for data discovery and visualization? Again, as I said at the beginning, it depends on your goals. It depends on your objectives. Do you use a dashboard? Do you use a story map? Do you use a pie chart? Do you just use a report? Do you use just a plain web map? Do you use a infographic, experience builder, web app builder? There's all kinds of tools at your fingertips. You don't use these tools just because they exist. I know the tools are engaging, but you're choosing these tools based on your needs, okay, and your objectives. Keep learning. Designing effective dashboards. There's a 41-minute video. I used it. My colleague created it. It's very helpful, and it helped me with this particular workshop. What's new in most ArcGIS products from Esri? There's a what's new that comes out every quarter, dashboards being no exception. You can look at the March 2022 and later ones if you're watching this video later on, where it talks about, hey, what are the new capabilities and how do you use them? The documentation in dashboards is actually quite good. It's not some boring old dashboard documentation or software documentation in general. It actually has embedded screen captures and graphics that show you really how to do this. There are Learn lessons on dashboards. Learn is a library of lessons that you can use, and there are a set on dashboards. There's also a 5 tips to improve your ArcGIS dashboards. So again, keep learning. There's also a MOOC, an Esri MOOC on do-it-yourself geo apps that includes dashboards. These MOOCs are 6 weeks long. They're fun, they're intuitive, they're free. And professors can use dashboards to share data within a research team. As I talked about earlier, partnered collaboration. You might want to investigate that. And also remember that last segment, I had you modify an existing dashboard. Again, you had an original dashboard, you put that new hashtag ID equals and then the map ID, and you can start modifying from that point on an existing dashboard. Very powerful educational technique that I didn't want to miss here. Why this matters? Students who understand how to think critically and spatially and use GIS can be a powerful and positive force in your university, technical, tribal, community college, in your secondary school, etc., in their future workplace as well, and in the global economy. Empowered with employees who use GIS, workplaces will become a vibrant and efficient place to be and work, enabling a prosperous economy and sustainable environment for all. So with that, I hope you've enjoyed this Dashboards workshop. Feel free to contact me if you've got any questions or concerns, and share your work with others. Keep learning and keep on mapping. Thanks.